Welcome to Vinex Studio. Let's start making games.
And welcome to another tutorial on how to animate the scene transition in Unity. What we are aiming at is an effect like this. It fades from a dark black background to the scene, and whenever we try to switch to another scene, something like this, fade into blackness and again load into the new scene. Now I have two scenes in my game. One is scene one, it has the text scene one, and the other one is the sample scene. So we'll be switching between them and using the transition effect. Now the first thing that is required for the transition effect is to cover the screen with an image. So let's go ahead and add an image. So you can just click on the plus sign, UI, and click on image. We'll just call this transition image and we'll set the color to black and will increase the width and height so that it covers the whole camera. So now my screen is black, and make sure that the image that you're going to use to cover your camera should be the last one of the children in canvas, because if the text is after the transition image, then the text will be visible to camera. So we don't want that to be happening, and the transition image should be the last one. Now that we have added the image, I'm going to tag the image with the finish tag so that I'll be able to access it easily from the script. So I'm going to save the scene and I'm going to the next scene and I'm going to add another image to this. Okay, and this is also my transition image, and this should also have the finish tag, and the color should be black, and I'm going to set the width and height to cover my camera. So now that we have made the UI required to cover the camera, what we are going to do is we'll be getting this image in our script and then we'll be adjusting the alpha value of the color slowly so that the scene slowly comes into existence. Now to do that, let's create an empty game object and let's call it scene loader. Okay, and I'm going to attach a script called scene loader script. So I have the script ready already. So let us open the script and see what is happening inside the script. Now we have added Unity Engine.scene management because this is required for switching the scene. Then Unity Engine.ui is required to access the UI. Then we have added system.threading.task. This is required to use an async function. So we'll be using the async function to delay the scene load. Then inside our class, we have an image game object, which will be our transition image. And then we have two booleans, loading and unloading. This will define whether the scene is loading or it is unloading. And then we have a timer. The timer will be used to loop between values. And then speed. Speed will be the speed at which we want to loop the values. Now Unity has an event called scene loaded. It is triggered when the scene is loaded. It also has a trigger called scene unloaded, but we can't use the unloaded event because it will be called after the scene is unloaded, but we need the animation effect to happen just before the scene is unloaded. So we won't be using that trigger, but for the loading purpose, we'll be using the scene loaded trigger. So we'll subscribe to that event. On scene load function will be called whenever a scene is loaded. So it's a good practice that whenever you subscribe to an event, you also unsubscribe to it. So on disable will unsubscribe to the event. Now in the start, we are going to make sure that this game object is not destroyed when the scene is loaded. That is because when it goes to the next scene, we need the same effect there. So if you don't want the same effect in the next scene, you can remove this part. Don't destroy load is not required. And in the update, we're checking if the scene is loading and the timer value is less than 1. The reason we are checking it's less than 1 is when it is equal to 1, the loop would have finished. And we are incrementing the timer with time.delta time and speed. And we are setting an alpha value based on the loop function. So if you don't know about the lerp function, you can check our video on lerp. So it will lerp from 1 to 0, that is maximum alpha, maximum opacity to transparency, and we'll take that value and set it to the colors alpha value. When the timer is almost finished, we'll set loading to false. And we'll do the same thing for unloading. The only difference here is there we have lerp from 1 to 0. Here we'll lerp from 0 to 1. And this is a simple code so that I can switch scenes. And if the escape key is pressed, it will set unloading to true and it will call the function scene load. Now we have two more functions here. One is on scene load, and this function here is subscribed to the scene loaded event. So we are setting the timer to 0 and we are telling Unity that loading is true, and then we are getting the image component. Now in case of scene load, which is an async function, and we are using await toss.delay and delaying the events below by 3 seconds. And once the delay is complete, we are setting timer to 0, unloading to false, and we are loading our new scene. So this code is available on Linux Studio. I'll leave the link in the description. So now let's go to Unity and see how it works. So you can see that the scene is loaded, but it slowly comes into existence. And similarly, when you press the escape key, the scene goes into darkness and the next scene is loaded and it slowly comes into existence. Now this is a simple effect by just changing the alpha. There are few more tricks that you can do with the image component. For example, let's select the transition image. Is it scene one? Okay. And let's select the transition image. And you can see that we have not assigned any source image. So you can just assign any other image. It can be anything built inside Unity also. Because we'll not be using the image as it is, we'll be using the color property. Since it's set to black, it doesn't matter what source image you're using here. Last time we forgot, it should not be a raycast target. And so make sure you uncheck this. I forgot to uncheck this. And then set the image type to filled. So you can see that the image is smaller. So let's make it wider so that it covers the whole screen. So you can see that now if you adjust the fill image, you can get a radial fill effect while loading the scene. And if you go and set it to horizontal, you can have a panning effect here. And you can do that vertically too. So if you want to do this, you can just adjust the fill amount in place of the alpha. So I'll just show you a simple example of how we can do that. So this will be required and alpha. Okay, we can use the same thing, and we don't require color. We don't require to set these things. So all we need to do is transition dot fill amount is equal to alpha. So you can do the same thing for unloading, and you can comment out these lines. Let's hit on play. Oh, that's a cool effect, right? And if I press escape, and the screen closes and it loads, and nothing happens because I forgot to change the settings in the other scene also. So you have to do it in both. So it was 1000 and 600, and the source image was background, and the image type was filled, and it was, we'll try radial for this one. And here we go. Okay, press escape. Okay, and that's a cool effect. So you can play around with the settings. The field also has horizontal, vertical, radial 180, radial 90. So you can play around. You can also change the origin here and play around with that value as well. So this was about animating your scene transition. So if you have any other questions, you can leave them in the comment box below. Thank you and see you in the next tutorial.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share.